Krishna, you want to read text 9? So we read text 9. Microphone.
सत्वं सुखे संजयति
सत्वं सुखे संजयति
रजः कर्माणि भारत
रजः कर्माणि भारत
ज्ञानमावृत्य तु इतरुत्तमा
नावृत्य उत्तमा
प्रमादे संजयत्युत
प्रमादे संजयत्युत.
Translation. O son of Bharat, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness.
9.9, you want to read the purport? That's 14.9.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A person in the mode of goodness is satisfied by his work or intellectual pursuit, that just as a philosopher, scientist, or educator may be engaged in a particular field of knowledge and may be satisfied in that way. A man in the mode of passion may be engaged in fruitive activity. He wants as much as he can and spends for good causes. Sometimes he tries to open hospitals, give to charity institutions, etc. There are signs of one in the mode of passion. These are signs of one in the mode of passion. And mode of ignorance covers knowledge. In the mode of ignorance, whatever one does is good neither for him nor for anyone.
Okay, so here are some more characteristics of the three modes. What are the mode of goodness characteristics here? Conditions 1 to happiness. And mode of passion, fruitive action. And mode of ignorance, binds one to madness. Now, why are we studying all the three modes now? What is the purpose of us studying all, understanding and analyzing? Why is Krishna giving us so much detailed information on the three modes of material nature? Yes, Nan Gokul. Wait, he had his hand up first. That's okay. Yeah, no, he's all right. Yeah.
That's the reason we can identify each type of, and then we can choose for association.
Yes. Okay. Very good. So we can see the modes in action, and we can know how to choose association. Very good.
Second thing is we have to discriminate because we are not at the level of systematic.
Yes.
We first to discriminate, so we need to know on what basis we can discriminate.
On which mode we are in ourselves, and we discriminate. Okay. Very good. Shiv Krishna Prabhu is the microphone. Do you have microphone with you? Okay.
Krishna. After learning chapter 13, knowing the Kshetrajna, it is important to know that what are the modes and how and where we are situated in terms of
Very good.
our position.
Yes. Very nice. So, if you don't know where we are, how can you get to our destination? Right? Any map you see, it says you are here. And then it says, okay, I want to go there. So, you should not know where you are, you don't know where to go. So, therefore, to understand our position, you're right, we have to understand the three modes of material nature. What other reason is there? Yeah, actually, microphone is to be passed around. Sorry, there's only one.
To conquer the unconquerable modes of material nature.
Yes, very good point. That is a very good point. And that is the real reason we are trying to understand the three modes. Not only understand where we are, but to get out of them. See, in the material world, when we study some subject, let's say you are specializing in physics, then you study physics and go deeper and deeper into physics. Become more and more knowledgeable, and you take and go one topic you take and go deeper and you do graduation, post-graduation, PhD, double PhD, triple PhD. We go more and more into the subject. But here, Krishna is giving the knowledge of modes of material nature to get out of it, not to get into it. So that is the main difference between material knowledge and spiritual knowledge. This spiritual knowledge, actually, even though it's describing the material world, it is actually liberating. The idea of a described material world is not to get more attached to it, but to become detached from it. So that is why it is important for us to understand the three modes. And also, we can see how, if we understand the modes that we are in, we also understand how to engage those three modes. Because modes are going to be there, like it or not. So let's use it in some service, devotion service. That way, we are taking advantage of the modes rather than being bound by the modes. So someone is very passionate, how can you use that person's mode of passion? Yes, they should do preaching work, build temples, collect money, raise funds. So much activity is required. Organizing Rath Yatra festivals, organizing so many things. So this is always a mode of passion is useful. In fact, like we discussed last time, Arjuna wanted to be in the mode of goodness by leaving the battlefield. Krishna said, no, you need passion to fight. You go to the mode of passion, use the mode of passion to fight. Otherwise you can't fight. You can't do my service without passion. I remember once Uttama Shlok Prabhu, he had come, he had told us, he quoted from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and he said, I wish my disciples would rise to the mode of passion. That's not a very complimentary statement. That means if you are in the mode of ignorance, one doesn't do anything. So better than that, do something, even if it's not perfect. At least they're doing something. Similarly, mode of goodness also can be used in Krishna's service. How can you use mode of goodness? Yes, one likes to help others. One has helping nature. So that person can use that mode of goodness to help others come to Krishna consciousness. And also mode of goodness is conducive to Krishna consciousness. It helps one to appreciate Krishna consciousness. One has a taste for Krishna. One develops a taste for hearing and chanting. So this is one of the questions that devotees always ask. How do I know I am making progress in spiritual life? Now with this knowledge that you have got from the first 9 verses of this chapter, how can you answer that question? Isn't that a common question we get asked all the time? How do I know I am making progress in spiritual life? Am I stagnating? Am I going backwards? Am I going forward? Who is there to tell me how I am going to find out? Now you give me an idea from these 9 verses we read. How can you answer that question? Yes, very good. Our enthusiasm for devotion service should increase more and more. Because even in the mode of goodness, the attachment to happiness, one feels one should not do more service. One should do, I am doing enough. Be comfortable. One gets attached to the comfort zone. Isn't it? One doesn't want to stretch beyond the comfort zone because that's too passionate. Prabhu, you're too passionate. Doing too much service. That's not mode of passion. It is actually attachment that one is getting a taste for service. So the more taste we get for service, every year in our devotional life, our enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness should increase, not decrease. You should not think, I have done enough now, I should retire, I should take it easy. That is not the mood. See, Prabhupada, he never took that mood. Till the very end, a month before he passed away, he made a trip to London. Even the physical body could not physically handle it, he still went. Now you see Jayapatak Maharaj, he is in such a critical condition. To the very last, even in the hospitals, in the hospital, the nurses and doctors, they are all chanting. He is not even conscious. Just by being the presence, I'm not saying because he's my guru, but I'm just saying like that. There are so many examples. It's recently happening, so I'm just mentioning. Oh, that's the wrong place. Sorry, Mataji, it's the wrong place. I should take it out. No, it's not your fault. It's not wrong. So the main reason for understanding the modes of material nature is that one has to become more attached to devotion service. And attachment for devotion service should increase day by day. And that means, maybe we can keep somewhere else. Huh? Yeah, good idea. Keep in the front for time being, yeah. So, as a result of performing devotion service, our attachment to the material world should decrease. attachment to Krishna should increase. And that is, so Senthil made a very good point, that our attachment to devotional service should increase more and more. If it's decreasing, means there is a problem in our practice. Somewhere there is a problem. Similarly, the attachment to hearing and chanting should increase, not decrease. If it's decreasing, means again we are not making progress. So these are some of the symptoms of the modes of material nature. Okay, so you had a point you were going to make? The microphone. You are saying somebody else had a hand up. Oh, Nand Gokul had a hand up. Oh, you had a hand up. Yeah. Okay. It's too stuffy, is it? Finding stuffy? Actually, don't lock it. You just unlock it. Just keep it so people can come. I don't know. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. It's got a little bit of air also. Yeah. So you had some points before. So you both raised hand at the same time. I asked Senthil to speak. No, you did already. You were covering your point. Before that, he had his hand up. That's.
Likewise, we should actually, by reading these 9 verses, we should be able to understand which mode we are in and where we should be going.
Yeah.
And that will be the understanding of how we actually progressing or not progressing.
Okay.
So we actually, as you said previously, we will know where we are.
Yeah.
And where we have to progress. So now we actually at least will get the path or the visibility of the path where we have to go.
Yes, that is how we know we are making progress. Our attachment to devotion service should increase. A capacity for devotion service should increase. One time I was hearing a lecture of Kadamkan Maharaj. He was saying that he was in charge of the Prabhupada Samadhi that time, and he said that he was so busy with the Prabhupada Samadhi, then Loknath Maharaj came and gave him some other service and said, "Can you do this service also?" Then he said, "I'm already so busy. Can you not ask someone else to do it? I'm already so full. I can't do it." And Loknath Maharaj told, "In our village, we have a logic that you want to get any work done, you go and find the busiest person and get him to do it. Then something will get done. If you see someone not doing anything, they'll not do anything anyway." So Karamkan Maharaj said he got me with the logic. I couldn't argue against that. He said, "Okay, I took on another service. Already I'm doing one, so many. I took one more additional thing. All right, I'll do that also." So with such nice logic, I could not. They said in Maharashtra, in a village, we do like that. We look for the busiest person, and in our village, we give that person the work. It'll get done. So what is the purport of that? Purport of that is that our attachment to service should increase. One should be eager to take up more service, more enthusiastic. Of course, taking on more service and making a mess of it is not a good either. But at the same time saying, "Oh, I'm in a mode of goodness, I will only do few things, I'll do it nicely." That is also attachment to mode of goodness. Because one gets attached to mode of goodness thinking, "I'm superior to it." That's another quality of mode of goodness. It brings superiority. It thinks I am better to everybody. It is actually higher than other modes, no doubt, but it makes one feel superior. And what happens when one feels superior? Pride comes in. And when pride comes in, what happens? We are slipped into mode of passion. So no longer mode of goodness. We think we are still in the mode of goodness, and we are already slipped into mode of passion. And when our pride is, what is the result of pride? We want to be respected and honored. This is the symptom of pride. We want to be respected and honored. It's opposite of amanena manadena. We want to be respected and honored. And we don't get respect, what do we do? What's the next step in that? You get anger. And anger means mode of ignorance. So where is mode of goodness now? It's finished. We thought, but because of Maya, we think we're still in mode of good. Prabhu, I'm in mode of goodness. And like we discussed last time, mode of goodness and ignorance have one thing in common. What is that? Why this? What is similarity? Both are devoid of passion. Both are devoid of passion. He doesn't have passion, he doesn't have passion. What is the difference? One is goodness, one is ignorance. That's very tricky because one becomes very comfortable and complacent and one starts thinking, this much I will do, more than it I should not do. And unfortunately in ISKCON, unfortunately today the society, that kind of under devotee care, this kind of mistake is also happening, that one is getting to comfort zone. One thinking, I should be very comfortable. Oh, take care of devotees. Don't do too much. It's not good. Just 16, look after your family. That's enough. That is okay, but we are a preaching movement. If everyone decided to rule like that, where would the preaching happen then? So, we want to care for devotees, no doubt, but that doesn't mean one just slips into complacent mode and just saying I'm self-maintenance. And I'll just maintain myself and that's enough. I don't care about others. So, microphone.
I was listening to Mukundmala Prabhu's lecture the other day, and he was mentioning exactly the same thing. He said in ISKCON also devotees, they come very, very enthusiastic, they get all the Bhakti Vriksha certificates, then they go to Harinam Diksha, then get a second initiation, then what? Then stop. And there it becomes stagnant, you know. After that there is no progress because they think, oh, everything is done, now they become lazy. And then come to the mode of ignorance there again.
That's a very good point. Therefore, we have our temple as a goal, develop spiritual leaders. You don't stop at, you come into Bhakti Shastri class here, every one of you is either leading a Bhakti Vriksha or going to lead a Bhakti Vriksha. That is the whole idea. Because everyone has to take responsibility on behalf of Lord Chaitanya. So now you have learned something, you should be able to go and share with others. If you don't share, your own learning doesn't increase. See, when you are talking, Mataji, you all right? Yeah, please, don't hesitate at all. You want to take rest or something? You want to go inside, you can take rest. Would you like to? Oh, no, please. Oh, yeah, no, please. Don't. Yeah. Please hold her. Yeah. If you want to take rest, you please do, okay? Don't hesitate. Huh? So you see, this is going beyond the comfort zone. Yeah. So that's why the people have all this thing. I've done Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav is all completed now. Actually, Prabhupada has given us enough service for 25 years. No one can say it's finished. That's totally wrong. Okay, I mean, he's making good point, but people who argue he's trying to establish the fallacy of the people who speak like that. I also say that it is wrong because how can you finish anything? Can anyone say I finished Bhagavad Gita? This is the disease of the mode of passion. You see, we read something once, we think I already understood, I don't want to hear it again. Repetition you feel is like, oh, big crime. Prabhupada used to say every day I'm not the body. And people criticize Prabhupada. Even disciples criticize. Prabhupada every day is saying I'm not the body. I already know that. But he said, have you realized it? And the repetition is necessary. Our disease mind looking for new stories, new pastime, something new I want to hear. Of course, speakers should make it interesting. That is another aspect. But as a student, we should be looking at if something being repeated doesn't mean he doesn't have knowledge, that's why he's repeating. That's a wicked mind that thinks like that. Oh, he doesn't know anything, so that's why he's repeating. That's the wicked mind. But a devotee says, no, he's repeating means, I have not understood it. He's seeing that I have not understood. That's why he's repeating it. We should take it like that. As a teacher, I should think, oh, I have to study nicely and prepare nicely and try to give deeper and deeper knowledge to the devotees so that they can improve in devotion service and become enthusiastic in devotion service. The purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam class is to increase enthusiasm for service, not to decrease. But we find that over the years, devotees are losing the enthusiasm. And why? Because they're not preaching. Because they're not preaching. If you preach, you'll always be enthusiastic. That is the secret of Prabhupada's. That's how ISKCON of Prabhupada is different from other Vaishnava institutions. Because in ISKCON, the preaching is the essence. The mood is very strong. In other institutions, you go and take part in devotion service, but the preaching is not emphasized so much. But Srila Prabhupada emphasized preaching, but not reckless preaching. He insisted on very good training. He said, as it is, Bhagavad Gita as it is. Don't concoct something, don't make up something. Everyone should try to preach according to their capacity. In whatever capacity you, because when you speak the message of Krishna, become enthusiastic. If you feel that you're losing enthusiasm, it's because we're not preaching. And why we're not preaching? Because we're not hearing. Because when you hear something nice, you want to share, isn't it? You hear a nice story like today you quoted. You heard something nice, Mukundmala has read something, heard something. I want to share, the excitement is there. But if I don't read, how will I feel like sharing? What is there to share? And that goes back to our chanting. If our chanting is not proper, then we don't feel like reading. If we don't feel like reading, you don't feel like sharing. If you don't feel like sharing, you don't feel like chanting. If you don't feel, it goes in a endless loop. So we should not be so concerned about our comfort zone. We should try to go. Of course, Bhakti Charu Maharaj gave very good advice. We should go into the, out of the comfort zone, into the stretch zone. Stretch means you stretch ourselves. But not into the point of snap zone. You should not snap. Not stretch so far that you snap down. That's not also good. So that means the passion has overtaken the desire for service. Become too passionate. Because that's beyond our capacity. So that's why we need some Shiksha Guru or Diksha Guru to guide us. Who can tell us, look Prabhu, I think you are getting too far into the mode of passion, this is too much for you, it's affecting your health. But even devotees don't mind erring on that side than making error on other side where you are too complacent, too lazy, too comfort zone. That's not going to help us. So mode of goodness has that problem. It makes us complacent in the sense that I think everything is good, I'm very happy, I'm doing my rounds, I got my guru, I got my spiritual name, I don't need anything now, I'm quite happy. That is the defect in the mode of goodness. And you see, even big, like we discussed before, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was caught in the mode of goodness, isn't it? When Krishna told him, say, Ashwatthama is dead, he said, no, I can't do that. Because lying is not mode of goodness. Usually it's mode of passion or ignorance, depends on what kind of lie it is and how it is. It's not mode of goodness. But Krishna wanted it. Therefore it can't be against the mode of goodness. So the mode of goodness creates a superiority feeling that I am better than everybody else. I'm a great devotee. I'm a very nice person. Look at that person, is so lazy. Look at that person, is so passionate. I'm not like that. I'm very cool. Huh? And then you criticize. And then the criticism is Ashna Aparad. So many problems are there. So therefore, the best thing is Prabhupada gives us advice to be fully absorbed in devotional service. Fully. 24/7. And that means, don't think that devotional service you should sit in the temple 24/7. We're doing at home. Like this morning, we're coming from Canberra, so that's where Sharmukh is so tired. 2 hours we had to spend cleaning this place because our help is also not coming. So of course, house should be kept clean, but we are only arriving late night and morning is. I'm just saying that if we engage ourselves fully in service, that is also service because devotees are going to come. We are so happy that we have devotees coming and the house will be blessed and we are blessed. So it is a with great pleasure we're doing it. So what I'm trying to clarify here is one should not think if I'm sitting in temple 24/7, I'm doing service. Otherwise, I'm not doing service and therefore neglect the family or neglect the house. No, we are householders, so house should be part of our service repertoire. I just want to clarify things because people sometimes take things out of context. So both extremes are not good. Where one thinks that I'll chant my rounds and be happy and don't bother about anyone, too much politics, too much headache, it's all full of problems, better avoid it. That is not good approach. At the same time, we have to balance out things as best as we can so that we are doing our best capacity. Because when you absorb fully in service, here or there or anywhere, then our mind will not go into Maya. Then the modes will not be affecting us so much. We get free from the modes of material nature because always we're thinking how to please Krishna, how to please Guru, how to please Vaishnavas, how to serve the Lord nicely. Always making plans, always thinking and trying to improve ourselves also at the same time. So you had a point to make?
Prabhu, I remember 3 points which you mentioned, like 2 stories you mentioned before.
Yeah.
As you mentioned about the mode of goodness to how the people slip to mode of passion and ignorance is like I go to the, as you mentioned before, I go to the talk about Krishna because everyone, everyone says how nicely I've spoken about Krishna.
Yes.
So that, like glorification of mine, even though I'm glorifying Krishna, I actually like people glorifying me. So
Yes.
that's where the mode of passion and goodness and passion comes into action.
Correct.
The second example which you quoted is like there was one Ratha Yatra, and there was some elephant poo or something on the road, and the devotees actually asked someone, and he said, "Who I am? Do you know who am I?" I think he was one of the temple president or something like that. Very senior devotee said, "Why you are telling me this? Do you know who am I? And as the Ratha Yatra was coming,
Yes, I remember that story.
yeah, and that is the another example that I'm the mode of goodness, but like I always like to be there when everyone appreciates me. And the third point which you mentioned about repetitive hearing, Guru Maharaj last lecture in Bhagavatam, Guru Maharaj actually spoke about is like why we actually talk about Prahlad Maharaj and Narasimha Dev. He said we should not say, oh, Prahlad Maharaj, again Prahlad Maharaj, like he actually made it sound very nice, and it's like, oh, not again, like Prahlad Maharaj. But just by reading it, or listening to it, we are actually getting purified time by time, which we don't know as well. So small amount of purification is always getting added to us. So
Very nice.
those 3 points I just thought about.
Thank you. Very good points. Thank you very much for that. Excellent. Very good. Thank you for putting it all together nicely. See, that's why you're leading Bhakti Vriksha now. That's the advantage. You're listening carefully because when you speak, you also listen. Very nice point. And that reminds me of another interesting point, which I heard again from Kadam Khan Maharaj. He was talking about this. He said that in our movement, we have the highest philosophy, but our practice is way below the ideal. Our philosophy is the highest, but our practice is way below. We don't practice even a small percentage of what our philosophy says. When you hear that, you become very depressed. You think, oh my God, you're saying like you are here and you want to be there. Oh, that's too far. I can't make it. What's the use of trying? Forget it. I'll not make it anyway. So why not just remain here? Anyhow, I'm not going to get there. Why bother? So this is another philosophy that comes out. But he said, sorry. Yeah. So he said, but if we don't have the highest philosophy, at least we don't know. At least we know where to go. And by making every endeavor, we're making progress in spiritual life. Swalpampyasya dharmasya tayate mahato bhayat. So better try something than not try. If you don't try, what do you get? Nothing. If you, unfortunately, in a society of devotees, when you try something, you get criticized. They wait for you to do something and they won't do anything. But when you do something, they'll criticize you. Oh, this one is doing like that. Now that is very much that is very much a symptom of a neophyte mentality. Neophyte devotee will not do anything, but when someone does something, they'll stand up and criticize. They'll try to put faults, they'll try to put objections, they'll try to put obstacles on the way. But this is exactly what we need to cross over for our spiritual benefit. So we should say thank you very much. Remember the story I told about Eknath? I think we discussed it here, didn't we? Eknath, that the man is spitting on him, yeah. So every time he spat on him, 21 times he spat on him. And every time he had to go and take bath in the holy river because he was doing to puja. And instead of getting angry, he was thanking him. So after 21 times, the man got upset. He said, oh, I'm insulting you so much. How come you're not angry? He said, oh, I am actually feeling more. I'm blessed because I've taken bath in holy river 21 times. Thanks to you. And I will give you half the punya for the spitting you have done on me. The benefit of that 21 times bathing, I will give half of it to you. You can take that. That man completely, he was a Muslim man. He started crying and he said, I've not seen a saint like this. So my wife was showing that episode in one of the Eknath. I think you only gave the movie, no? You only gave it to her. I was having prashad. Hey, watch this, watch this. I said, yeah. So that is another. Yeah, I just watched one episode. I didn't watch the whole thing. But anyway, it was 5-10 minutes. But it was very nice. It was very, very revealing. And that gave me an insight that yes, by doing devotion service, our good quality should come out. Our good quality is mentioned in the Gita that we read in the, which chapter did we read? Qualities of a devotee. What are the characteristics of knowledge? Chapter 13. 13 chapter 8 to 12, right? Those 5 verses talk about the, what is knowledge? Tat Jnanam. What is knowledge? So those qualities that I mentioned that are conducive to knowledge, which are conducive to more of goodness actually. Goodness is knowledge. So that those qualities we should see manifest in the devotees, in us. They should start coming out, those qualities. When they start coming out, the one becomes more introspective. One start understanding how the modes are affecting us, how we're getting. See, the whole world, now coming back to that point of what Kadam Khan Maharaj is saying, there's a biggest gap between precept and practice. What is the precept? What is the ideal? And where we are practicing. But that's because we got the most knowledge. Other societies, other organizations don't have this knowledge. So therefore for them to rise above is mode of goodness is enough. Because they don't have knowledge. Because we have the highest knowledge, therefore the gap is also the biggest. It doesn't mean we are the worst people. It just means that we have the highest ideals, highest goals. The goal is the highest, Krishna Prem. Now that is very lofty. And how many people know that Krishna Prem is the highest goal? Very few people know that even. What to speak of trying to reach that goal? It's going to be very difficult. But at the same time, if we make an attempt to try to improve our devotion service, try to go beyond the modes, because the modes of nature are very difficult to cross, isn't it? Which verse Krishna says that? What is the verse? Mama durate, mameva. So the only solution is mameva ye prapadyante. That one who surrenders to me. So surrender means fully absorbed in service. Wherever we are, whatever we are doing, fully absorbed in devotion service. The more we absorb ourselves, the more we become free from the modes. And attachment to that comes from when you preach the glories, when you explain the glories to others. And that comes from hearing and chanting and reading. So the whole thing is linked up. Okay, we'll go to text number 10. Janardhan, you want to read text 10? Microphone.
Hare Krishna. Rajas tamascha vibhoya
Rajas tamasya vibhoya
sattvam bhavati bharata
Sattvam bhavati bharata
rajas sattvam tamaschaiva
Rajas tattvam tamaschaiva
tamas sattvam rajas tatha.
Tamasattvam rajastata.
Sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance. O Scion of Bharata, sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and at other times ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy.
Okay, just one point here. Bharata is son of Bharata. It's not always Sion. Bhakti Rasa Maharaj talked about 13 chapters, only one error. Not everything is wrong. Now I'm saying everybody is reading son of Bharata, son of Bharata. No, the Bharata means son of Bharata. Is actually, this is son only. Here in this verse it is son. I'm not saying to you, I'm just saying generally. No, okay. Bharatarshaba, okay, sorry. What this? Yeah, son of Bharata is mentioned here. Yeah, here it is Sion. Yeah, but some of them are Sion, some of them are son of Bharatarshaba. Because that verse is mentioned Bharatarshaba, right? Bharatarshaba. Yeah, it was the end of the 13th chapter. Huh? Bharat, son only is mentioned, right? Yeah, some of them is son, some of them is Sion. Yeah. What happened to Ben? What did they say? You haven't gotten a reply. They'll probably reply in due time. Okay. Anyway, okay. Until we clarify, let's read as it is. We'll find out. Okay. Sorry. Yeah? Okay. Any of the kids can read the purport? None of them. Are we not read the purport? You try and read. Oh, she's going to read. Okay. Who has got a mic can read. Okay. It will be next purport. Okay.
When the mode is
Passion.
is prominent, the modes of goodness and ignorance are defeated. When the mode of goodness is prominent, cessation and passion and ignorance are defeated. And when the mode of ignorance is prominent, passion and goodness are defeated. This competition is always going on.
Very good.
Therefore, one who is actually intent on advancing in Krishna consciousness has to transcend these three modes. The prominence of some certain mode of nature is manifested in one's dealing, in his activities, in eating, etc. All this will be explained in later chapters, but if one wants to, he can develop by practice the mode of goodness and thus defeat the modes of ignorance and passion.
Okay, good. I think that's good. That's good. No? Let us all read. Very nice, Tarini. Very good. You read little bit. It's a bit struggling for her, no? That's good. Now you read very well. After a couple of years, you'll become like Nidhi and become very expert. Thank you. Yeah, Arvind, read the rest part.
One can similarly develop the mode of passion and defeat goodness and ignorance. Or one can develop the mode of ignorance and defeat goodness and passion. Although there are these three modes of material nature, if one is determined, he can be blessed by the mode of goodness and by transcending the mode of goodness, he can be situated in pure goodness, which is called Vasudeva state, a state in which one can understand the signs of God. By the manifestation of particular activities, it can be understood in what mode of nature one is situated.
Very good, Arvind. Nice. Both Tarini and Arvind read very well. Huh? So next one we'll get Aditya to read the next one. Okay. Now, meanwhile, we'll discuss what are the main points here. Okay. What is Krishna saying in this verse number 10? Yes. So there is a competition between the three modes. That's why I often find example. I've heard about the Ferris wheel, the giant wheel, right? The giant wheel, our position on the wheel is constantly changing, and often one is debating which is the better position, the top position, the middle position, or the bottom position. Which is better? Nothing. It's always rotating. So even if you like the top position, it's not going to last. And in any case, the any mode is not good. So what is the best position to be on? It's off the wheel, not on the wheel. And I usually give the example of what my own experience with this. When I took my boys to the Luna Park, Who was that? When we have the three modes, like when you are on the wheel, we got stuck on the wheel because some failure, equipment failure, and we are stuck for 2 hours because the engineers had to come and release the mechanism. Some part had failed, and they couldn't get us off the wheel. We had stayed for 2 hours. And then we realized the best position to be is not on the wheel. The samsara life is always a life of thinking, oh, New York is good, no, Sydney is a good place to live in, or maybe I can live in New Zealand is better, a pure country. Whatever, we have ideas, no? We have all these ideas. Every place is a problem in the material world. A top position, the middle position, bottom position. No position is good. So after they got us off the wheel, then they announced, okay, now compensation for those who got stuck on the wheel, you get 25 free rides back on the same wheel. And the kids went, yay! And I said, no! I'm going back on that again. But that's what the material world is. They reward you saying, now you get an assignment in New York, you can go there. You can do wonderful things. So you're not satisfied with Sydney. Maybe you should go to San Francisco, Los Angeles, Silicon Valley. That's where you should be. Microsoft, Bill Gates. So this is the material world. No matter what the offer is, it is still going to keep us on the giant wheel. Yes, Nangakul.
Prabhu, that's the same point Guru Maharaj mentioned in the Bhagavatam classes. They say, like Maya Devi always say, he actually, kind of dramatized a bit. He says, Maya Devi says, yeah, I know you want to be, good, you want to reach there, but it's, it's far away. At the moment you have the material enjoyment. Why don't you, do this? And then that way she catches us, and we never get out of it. She says, you want to be there, and you know what? She always tells her, you will never get there.
That's right.
That's her job to
That's
say that.
To discourage us in devotional service.
Yeah, so she says.
Maya's job is discourage, and that's why unless you have this knowledge, we cannot detect the modes acting on us. And here Krishna is making the additional point that the modes will be they're all fighting with each other. They're all fighting with each other. Actually, Sharmukh has done a good illustration on this. She's taking rest. Maybe I should find next time. We'll show that she's done illustration on this one. Showing the boxing gloves. So each one is trying to fight the other one down. Passion, ignorance, goodness, passion, ignorance. Yeah. So because these modes are always going to fight for prominence, one cannot remain in any one mode. One cannot remain in a mode of goodness all the time. Therefore, the best option is Prabhupada says here, what does it say? Vasudeva state, right? Although the three modes of meditation, there are these three modes. If one is determined, he can be blessed by the mode of goodness, and by transcending mode of goodness, he can situate in pure goodness, which is called the Vasudeva state, a state in which one understands the science of God. That is Vasudeva state. When you can understand the science of God, when you can start seeing the modes of material nature acting. Okay, there are more characteristics. Krishna is going to give us more characteristics of three modes so that we can understand them better. Kalamata, you want to read the next verse?
सर्वद्वारेषु देहेऽस्मिन्
सर्वद्वारेषु देहेऽस्मिन्
प्रकाश उपजायते
प्रकाश उपजायते
ज्ञानं यदा तदा विद्यात्
ज्ञानं यदा तदा विद्यात्
विवृतं सत्त्वमित्युत.
विदितं सत्त्वमित्युत.
The manifestation of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge.
Yes. Read the purport, Mataji. Boys have gone. Purport boys have gone. Yeah, if you can call them, it's good. That's how slowly they get engaged. Otherwise, see, Tarini is still here. She's good. Now they're going to come back. What mode are the boys in? Now we talk about it. Of course, children are children, but still, they're influenced by. Okay, so Aditya is going to read the purport now.
There are 9 grades of body: 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, and mouth. The genitals and anus. When every gate is illuminated by the symptoms of goodness, it should be understood that one has developed the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, one can see things that right position, one can hear things the right position, and one can taste things the right position. One becomes cleansed inside and outside. In every gate there is a development in symptoms of happiness, and that is the position of goodness.
Very good. Thank you. Good reading. Okay, so what are the characteristics of this mode of goodness again? Krishna is going back and forth. Goodness, passion, ignorance. Goodness, passion, ignorance. Is going to give us one more. Why are you all going away? When next purport comes, we'll be waiting for you. All take turns reading. Soon after this, we'll have prasadam. And then you can play. Okay? Playing can do every day, but this you'll get only once a week. Right? You're all big boys now. All sit down, okay? Everything may not make sense, but even if a little bit makes sense, when you grow up, you'll have so much knowledge, you'll think, oh, where I learnt all this? Right? Okay. So what are the main points in this verse? 9 gates of the body, yeah? Illuminated by knowledge, yeah. Prabhas, you were saying something? Same thing? 9 gates illuminated by knowledge. So what do you actually mean by this? We read all this, 9 gates illuminated by knowledge. What actually meant here? Yeah. How can senses be illuminated? They are not something alive. They can only take the. Can use the microphone.
So when the knowledge you acquire through the senses, that knowledge.
Not working, huh? Hold it closer to your mouth.
When you get the knowledge, what Srila Prabhupada is referring here is that, Lord Krishna is telling that when you get the knowledge through the 9 gates, that knowledge that you are acquiring is only to understand the Supreme Personal Godhead.
Okay.
And that way you can go back to Godhead. There is a prerequisite to have the knowledge, then only you can understand the Supreme Personal Godhead. So the senses are used to understand the Supreme Personality Godhead, and that's what he's referring here. The gates like eyes, ears, nose.
Okay. All right. That's a good answer. Any other answers?
Using these 9 gates in the service of Krishna, and how do you use these 9 gates?
Yeah, that is essentially yes, similar point. Okay. Jitendra, what do you think? What is meant by illuminating here?
just a guess, but is it that all of those 9 gates can be used in a mode of goodness way, like all of the prescribed rules and regulations for brahmanas or brahminical activities that purify each of those senses or the 9 gates?
Yes, that's right. That's what Prabhupada says in the purport. One becomes cleansed inside and outside. So through the gates, if we take in Krishna conscious inputs, or through the gates, if Krishna conscious output is going, input, output, the IO is Krishna conscious, then what is the result of that? One becomes cleansed inside and outside. So these are the gateways. On the other hand, if we take in mode of passion or mode of ignorance through the gateways in and out, what is the result? One gets bound to the material world. Yeah, both passion and ignorance, they bind us to the material world. Mode of goodness also has a binding, less binding, but there's still a binding there. So all these 3 modes, as long as they're acting through the gates, there's going to be bondage. That's why example in Bhagavatam is given how each sense can trap one living entity. Remember the examples we discussed many years ago?
For example, people can use genitals to produce children, but if you produce children for the service of Krishna,
Correct.
then it is good.
Then it gets cleansed. The
But
one
if
gets
for
cleansed.
sense enjoyment, then it is the wrong.
It's binding, yes.
Similarly, we pass a stool, but we should eat only that much that only once or twice we should go to toilet in a day.
Yeah.
So you should be controlling eating habits.
Yes.
That way you are controlling the gate. Means
Yeah.
knowledge you are controlling.
Yes. So that's why there is the thing. So one becomes cleansed.
And also like Saranam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, that 9 process, there we are using the senses
Yeah.
for the Krishna service.
Otherwise, the same senses will become victims of Maya if we don't use them. Like the example of a fish. The fish tries to catch the worm, the tongue can eat boga or eat unoffered food or eating meat, fish, eggs. One gets caught to the material world. Similarly, the nose smelling also. Example is given how the nose who gets caught by the nose the smell. Yeah, the flowers, right? The bees, yeah. The insect goes into the flower and gets caught in the Venus flytrap. The smell goes there. Similarly, the sense of touch. Who is caught by the sense of touch? Which example is given? The elephant. It tries to touch the she elephant and running behind her, he falls into the pit. And the sense of hearing, who gets caught by sense of hearing? The deer. Listening to the music of the hunter, it goes towards the and falls into the net. So like that, every sense, and the eyes, the sense of sight, how does one get trapped? Light. The moth, no? They go towards the light, and a very hot bulb. At night time, you see street lights. Under the morning, you see heap of dead insects in the morning. Because they were attracted to the street light, very hot bulb, they get killed. So the eyes have been used to pull one down. Similarly, we can also get caught by each of our senses and get more entangled. But if we use those senses in Krishna's service, then one becomes cleansed inside and outside. So the mode of goodness does more cleansing, whereas the mode of passion ignorance causes one to become more attached. Yeah. Jadan Prabhu's got a question.
Over here, it is mentioned that the mode of goodness brings, it brings you happiness. It says that in every gate there is development of symptoms of happiness, and that is the position of goodness. So, what Prabhupada here is saying that the mode of goodness brings you happiness.
Yes.
So, if already the person is happy in the mode of goodness, then why does he need to transcend the mode?
That happiness is material happiness, isn't it? That happiness is not spiritual. It's material happiness. And therefore, it's going to be temporary. It's not going to last. Yeah.
But he can, the person can, if he is ultimately, Krishna consciousness brings the eternal enjoyment or eternal happiness. But then it's quite possible that there can be a deception in the happiness in the state of, in the mode of goodness.
Correct. In the mode of goodness, the happiness is one wants to stay in the material world. One doesn't want to get out. That's the problem. You think, oh, this world is very nice. Everything is good. I got a nice job, nice family, nice house, got good friends. I go to all the parties, and once in a while I go to a temple and say Hare Krishna to them, Hari Bol, and give a little donation. I'm happy. That's good. I don't need to get too caught up in Krishna. Now let me enjoy life. So even if one is more of goodness, it cannot. The goodness will not last. That's what we discussed in the previous verse, right? It is very temporary. Therefore, one will bound to fall into mode of passion. One will slide down. It is very hard to maintain that. And once you get down to passion ignorance, the binding is more tight. Mode of goodness also there is binding, but it is less tight. Example is given of golden shackles, silver shackle, and iron shackles. They're still shackles. What is the difference if you got golden shackles in a prison? You feel I'm prestigious, I've got golden shackle. It's still a shackle, right? Same thing. So that happiness that that's what people are trying for, because they don't have knowledge of the modes of material nature. They're trying for happiness in the mode of goodness. Do good to others, help others, and you be happy. Be charitable, be benevolent, be kind. But that very often leads to passion, because when we do those activities, we become attached, and we become attached, we want to be recognized for that. I want recognition for my service to humanity, and that immediately slips into mode of passion. And you don't get that, you become into ignorance. Or you see someone getting more glorification than me, then I become envious. That's why even amongst devotees this is there. It's not that only outside it is happening. Even amongst devotees it is there. Because we are still not free from the modes of material nature. I still have jealousy, I still have envy in my heart. We're not purified yet. But at least we have the advantage of knowledge to understand that this is what is happening here.
But here it's mentioned as a positive thing.
Yeah, compared to the mode of passion ignorance, it is positive. Yeah. Knowledge. Very good point. Yeah. It is a good mode of goodness is conducive to spiritual knowledge. That's why it is being glorified compared to other modes. And that is the problem with the Vedas. You see, that's why Vyasadeva was dissatisfied, because he glorified the mode of goodness in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. You can enjoy like this, perform the sacrifice, you get this enjoyment, this kind of happiness. Go to the heavenly planets, you'll get all these facilities, long life, no old age, death is very instantaneous, not painful. Lots of opportunities. You remain 21 for most of the time. You're not having the baby problems, nor having the old age problems. They're very minimum. Merely you can reach 21 straight away, and you remain 21 for a very long time, the peak of youth and vitality and health. So you can enjoy yourself, unlimited parties and unlimited this and that. That is being glorified. That's why he felt guilty afterwards. He said, oh, I haven't done the right thing. I have glorified the mode of goodness to the point that people start thinking that is the takeaway point. But actually, here Krishna is also pointing out the flaws in this. Also, we are reading the flaws as well, isn't it? Age temporary, B it is binding in its own way. It's still binding and it's not liberating. Though the only good point Charumati mentioned is it is conducive to spiritual knowledge. So therefore, it is to that extent is welcome. And that's the difference between following Vedic literature, Vedic culture, and non-Vedic culture. Vedic culture, even all the modes are there to help us to come to the mode of goodness, with the idea that one day we'll pick up the pure goodness. So one is gradually getting elevated. So a person getting in mode of ignorance, he comes to mode of goodness, that's a bonus. But that's not the final stage. It's not going to last. Therefore one has to try to transcend the modes as far as possible in everything we do. That's why he's saying about all the senses, if they're all gateways of illumination, knowledge, then one gets cleansed inside and outside. One becomes purified because they are engaged in devotional service, one way or other. That's the trap. You see, that's why Prabhupada makes example even of the transcendentalists. The transcendentalists, they also fall down. Because why? They get attracted to this mode of goodness, happiness. And they want to come down into the material world again. And because mode of goodness is not stable, they have to do something. So they will end up opening hospitals and schools. That's mode of passion. Because in the Brahma Jyoti it's very lonely, there's no activity. The soul by nature is active. So we have to act in some mode. And because they don't have information or devotion service beyond the three modes, the Vasudeva state, they don't have that knowledge. They don't have that information. They are attracted to the Lord. Therefore they have to perform philanthropic work in the material world. And that's what Brahma also says in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. 10th canto, Lord Brahma says that they fall down from that state. They can't maintain that state. Vimukta Maninas, they think they're liberated, but actually they're still attracted to the material world because they want activity. The soul by nature is active. So therefore the choice is either you act in the three modes or you transcend the modes. But activity has to be there. Okay? Jitendra Prabhu? You got the point? You say same you're going to say. Okay. Your point is covered. Okay.
I don't understand the last line in this purport. In every gate, there is development of the symptoms of happiness, which referring to the mode of goodness. But I don't understand what that means. How would you develop the symptom of happiness in the anus or something? How does that? What about that makes you happy?
Same question Akbar asked Birbal. You know the story? I think you must have heard. Which story I'm referring to now? I think you know the story as well. Huh? No, not old man. No, yeah, Sabse Bada Sukh. That's the one. When the king, the queen gives birth to a baby, you know. So everyone is celebrating. Then Akbar asked Birbal, how are you feeling? He said, I feel as if I've been to the toilet. He said, what do you mean? This is such an auspicious event. The prince is born and you are saying it's like going to the toilet? So then Birbal takes Akbar on a long tour and on a boat. And suddenly Akbar wants to go to the toilet and he can't in the middle of a river. There's no toilet facility. So he keeps on roaming around. Finally gets into the place where there's a toilet. And then he relieves himself, Akbar. And then he comes out and asks, Birbal asks, how do you feel? I feel so great. I said, I feel so relieved. Huh? This is a great, when you're desperate to go to the toilet and you can't find one. And when you do find one, you feel so relieved. There's some happiness in that. Believe it or not. So that way there is happiness even in the relief. See, in the material world, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains, happiness is nothing but absence of suffering. There's really no happiness. Matra sparshastu kaunteya, shitoshna sukha dukkha. The sukha and dukkha is ultimately, it is a perception only. So the genitals also, they give some relief when it is relieved. When the excretory bodies of the body, when the excretion is taken out of the body, you feel relief. That is taken as happiness.
But how would that differ between the three modes? You'd be relieved anyway, no matter which mode you're in, right? So what does that have to do with the mode of goodness?
Hi Krishna Prabhu, when I used to study do yogasan, our teacher used to quote this very often, and I don't know where it came from, I don't know the source, but they say, ek bar, once, who goes to the toilet just once is a yogi, do bar rogi, bhogi, and three times who goes is a rogi. So if our diet and if our life is regulated in a way that we manage to just the nature's call is only once in a day, then that's a state of happiness. Because otherwise, in mode of passion or ignorance, you might be going to the toilet twice, 3 times. There is no regulation, and mode of goodness is all about regulated lifestyle.
It's a very good point. Actually, Prabhupada quotes that also. Prabhupada also says that. There's a Prabhupada quote on that. Yeah, yogi, bhogi and rogi. Yeah, that's true. So this is how Ayurveda works as well. Ayurveda works like this as well. That the doctor, one who goes to toilet more than once, they say in a day, the Ayurvedic doctor will make a lot of money out of him. because he is not healthy. One who goes to toilet after eating is not healthy. There are some things Prabhupada quotes, not in one place, but in different circumstances. I'm just bringing them together, not in sequence. But he said like that, because that means the body is not digesting food properly and there's constipation or something is happening. And as a result of which the one is not in the proper, as Mataji rightly said, one is not in the mode of goodness. So every sense, how it behaves, the behavior of the senses or the action of the senses indicates what mode we are in. It's a symptom indication. So these are all symptomatic. So the point here is that they are all symptomatic. The symptoms of these organs indicates our lifestyle through mode of goodness, sir. You're feeling cold, are you? Oh, I can put on the heater. Is the heater on? Is the windows closed? You got a fever? You got a fever or something? Right. Can you use the heat? You can sit next. Is the heater on? It is on. It is on. Yeah. Once, you got jackets, 3 layers, 3 layers. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've got the heater on for a long time since morning. Why don't you sit there? Yeah, just be practical. Go. Sure. Yeah. So these are all symptomatic. That's the conclusion. They itself are not mode of goodness. There's nothing mode of goodness about going to the toilet. But as Mataji rightly said, it is a symptomatic of one's lifestyle, which is symptomatic of the mode we are in. Yeah. Yeah, body cleansing is required. You see, there are yogis in the Himalayas. Prabhupada talks about these kind of yogis when they come to Kumbh Mela and all that. There are one class of yogis, I forgot the name that's mentioned. Their specialization is they don't pass stool. And they eat charcoal only. And they are constipated. But what's the big deal? People who constipated also don't pass stool. So Prabhupada didn't think much about it. But they have great pride. No, they don't pass water, they don't pass stool. And they consider very advanced yogis. People think, wow, look at him, he's so great, such a nice yogi. But actually, there's no value in that. But they eat, actually if you give them a roti, what they'll do, they'll burn it on the fire and eat the coal. The charcoal that comes out of burning the roti. You give rice, they'll burn the rice and eat the ashes. Because when you eat that kind of food, it will not, there's constipation, it will not pass. No water in that, it completely absorbs all the moisture. No moisture, nothing comes out of the body. And they maintain their life. Yeah. But they eat very little, they don't eat much. They eat little bit. Very little they eat. Bare minimum. And that is their perfection. That they think that is yoga, that is our yogic perfection. They think that is a greatness. So mode of goodness means one does not pass excessively, one doesn't pass too much. Again, one can go into the analysis of that. Ayurvedic doctor will tell you. Mode of goodness, by the way, in the 17th chapter, you're going to read that again. It's conducive to long life. Duration of life can be extended by doing these things. A long duration of life and good health, by doing these things. There is what is that? Shivambasa Chikitsa, that Moraj Desai used to do, drink his own urine. Shivambu, right? He drinks his own urine. Now that is, and they become very strong. It says in Ayurveda if you drink, but then the food has to be good, the ahar has to be good. You have to eat only food, organic, pure goodness, mode of goodness food has to be eaten. Then only the urine is pure enough to drink. But if we drink, yeah, otherwise if you eat something that's toxic, and then you drink that, you'll be dead. End up in. But provided the food is right. But this is also not recommended in the mode. In Kali Yuga, they're not recommended because our food and air we breathe is not pure. The water we drink is not pure. Again, cows have to be fed the right kind of grass. So that's the whole thing there. The whole pollution is so great that nothing works as it is meant to be working. But you are right. Cow urine is a lot better than ours. Yeah. So there is a mode associated with all of this. Actually, with this chapter, you can see in everything we do, we see the modes acting actually. That is what you see. By reading this chapter, you actually find that we actually see the modes acting on us every minute of the day. Everything we do, everything we see, observe, all this will be modes in action. Nothing but the modes. Unless one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, which is Vasudeva state. Okay. Only the next verse.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Yeah. Prabhu, I have a question about there is one hole which is, or the gate which is mentioned is a Brahmarandra.
Yeah.
And like Prabhupada hasn't spoken about that in the purport anywhere. And in the translation it just says all the gates. So can you just elaborate on that?
What's your question?
So like why Prabhupada only spoke about the 9 holes, not the Brahmarandra?
Yeah.
So
Actually, that's there in illustration. If you see in the illustrations, I don't know, it's all books. Huh?
the plates, it's
The
there
plates
that
there,
the
no?
yogi is taking his soul out,
Yeah.
life.
And which chapter is that referring to?
I think it's chapter, sixth chapter or something.
Few chapters is mentioned, but that's the one. I'm just curious to know which verse is referring to. Yeah, that one. The chapter 8 or I think it's chapter 8. I think. Ah, I thought so. It must be chapter 8, right? Do you read that verse?
तत्र चंद्रमाशं ज्योतिर योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet, but again comes back. This is not the one, Prabhu. There is another one.
Read the translation. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that Supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery god, in the light, at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north.
Referring to that verse. Next verse. Next verse. What's the next verse say? Which point? Okay, that picture in your shows. Now, when the question is his question related to the Brahmaranda, right? The spot. So, yeah, there directly not mentioned, but in the illustration it shows there how the yogi is leaving his body through the top of his head, because yes, Prabhu. No, it's not. No, it is to raise the life airs to the point gradually through the life of yoga practice, so that at the end of life, when the consciousness is raised up to the top level. Because the consciousness is raised to the lower level, because what happens when the person dies, they usually pass stool or urine, they die in that condition. Because that means the consciousness has not been elevated. Another auspicious way to leave, Prabhupada says, leave through the mouth. When they leave through the mouth, that is also considered auspicious. Or through the eyes, or through the nostrils, through the upper part of the body. But the topmost, this is the topmost. But for a devotee, you say it doesn't matter. If he is in Krishna consciousness, no matter what mode is affected, and those are related to the modes again. So that's why your question is very relevant. So leaving through the top of the body is the perfection for the yogi. Then they can choose what planet they want to go. They can propel. That's what that picture is actually trying to show, illustrating that he can choose what planet he wants to go, and you can see he is looking at the moon planet there, isn't it? That yogi is thinking, I'll go to Chandraloka because there is more level of enjoyment. But that in of itself doesn't guarantee one will go back to Godhead. One can go maybe maximum to the point of Ramajyoti. But beyond that, one cannot be controlled by, the yogi can't control that. At the most, if they are really, really fortunate, very advanced, they might go to the transcendental state of being to Ramajyoti. Even that's very difficult. Mostly they'll be able to propel their consciousness to go to one of the higher planets within the material world. But yeah.
So if it is coming from the head part, anywhere from the head part, That is the symptoms of that devotional service. And if you are taking out from the Brahm that whole, then actually you can go to the planet that you want. But still, Prabhuji is telling that is mainly for mystic yogi, and that is not required for devotees. For
I remember reading it somewhere, yeah. Okay, next time maybe bring that excerpt if you can find it. We can read that next time. Just find a relevant passage. Bring it next time. Next week we can discuss that. Huh? You don't have the book? Yeah, it's then e-books are there everywhere. You should find it in that and you find out that passage where it is. So yeah, the yogi gets a choice. Like Bhishma Dev had that power. In the Bhagavatam mentioned, Bhishma Dev had that power. He had the power to choose when he wants to die and where he wants to go after death. So both he had the powers to do that. Huh? So that ability one does get the ability, but that is limited to the material world. One doesn't guarantee. Maybe very fortunate case they may go to Brahmajyoti, but that's about it. One cannot go back to Godhead just by that yogic process.
Prabhu, what I was trying to understand is in the translation, Prabhupada actually writes all the gates of the body, and he only mentions 9, and he doesn't mention that it's a gate. In one way, it's a gate.
Yeah,
so I was just trying to
but it's not an
understand.
active gate. You see, during the life, it's not getting used. It's not an active gate. It's a gate to get out of the material world. But it may not necessarily be out of the 3 modes. It could still be in the mode of goodness. Like you see in that illustration, it shows clearly that he's going to the moon planet. So one could still be enamored by the higher planets and want to go there. Not guaranteed. But the yogi has a choice to, he can choose which planet he wants to go. If he's really sufficiently advanced in yoga, he can choose his planet. But that in of itself is not guaranteed one go back to Godhead. One has to do some devotional service in order to, that Vaishnava Sambandha has to be there. Relationship with devotee has to be there. The Lord Vishnu Sambandha has to be there to go back to Godhead. That's why you see in the case of Ravan also, to be killed by Lord Ramchandra, he had to get the adhikar. He didn't get the adhikar of being killed by the Lord just because he stole Sita. That is not his qualification. That he could have been killed by so many other methods. Why the Lord has to personally come and kill him? That sometimes people misunderstand from the Ramayana. They think, oh, because he stole Sita, Lord Ram killed him. It looks like he did something bad to get that mercy. But actually his Vishnu Sambandha came when he went to see Bali Maharaj in the Sutala planets, right? He's guarding the, Vamandev is guarding the gate. So when he tries to enter the gate, Vamandev stops him. Vamandev is guarding Bali Maharaj's kingdom. That's the benediction he got because of surrendering everything. Bali Maharaj gives his whole kingdom, his whole body, surrenders to the Lord. In reciprocation, the Lord says, I'll give you a special planet, you can stay there. The lower planets, because you're a demon. But I will be your personal guard, bodyguard. I'll be your Jai Vijay for you. So then, when, I'll just finish. So when Ravan tries to enter, Vamandev stops him. And each time he tries to enter by different mystic powers, becoming small, this, that, invisible, but each time he gets caught. And finally tries to escape. Lord Vamandev puts his foot on his head and crushes him. Little bit, not kills him, but crushes him. Because he had the touch of the feet of Lord Vamandev, he became eligible to be killed by Lord Ramchandra. So unless the Vishnu Sambandha is there, what I'm trying to say is the Brahmaranda itself is not a guarantee that you will get divorced, that you go back to Godhead, because the Vishnu Sambandha has to be there. Only then one gets a chance to go back to Godhead. So Ravan was liberated by getting killed by the Lord, certainly. But that qualification came because he had a Vishnu Sambandha, not because he killed Mother Sita. Sorry, not killed, kidnapped. Kidnapped Mother Sita, sorry. Not because of kidnapping her. Yes, you had to say.
Why Krishna is not mentioning this Brahmarandra as a gate? Because it is not the part of the body which is used for sense gratification. All these 9 gates are part of sense gratification.
See, now Navadvara Puri is described, the body described as Navadvara Puri, a city of 9 gates. Those 9 gates, the Brahmaranda is not considered a gate in that sense. Because they are not active, it's not an active sense. It's not a working sense, not an active sense. It's not one of the senses. Whereas the gates that we are talking about are the active senses. And Brahman is not one of the active senses. You can't eat or smell or see or do anything with that. Nor can you acquire knowledge with that. But that's the gate to get out.
On that point, it's not only inactive, it's not even open. That's what Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj said. It's only open at the time that you're about to leave the body through the head. Otherwise, it's closed anyway, so it wouldn't count as one of the 9 gates.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So how come Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, they all got Vishnu Sambandha?
Yes, they had to do something in order to get to be killed by the Lord. They have to attract the mercy of the Lord one way or other. Because Hiranyakashipu also, whatever be it, he gave birth to Prahlad Maharaj. So that's the Sambandha there. They were Jaya and Vijay to start with anyway. But even on top of that, you're right. Of course, originally they were Jaya Vijay. That is the starting point. But even further than that, in that life also they had to have some Vishnu Sambandha to get the mercy of the Lord. Yeah. So the generation, one alternate, odd generations were, that's the Bhaktivinoda Maharaj said, right? Every alternate generation there are demons in the family. On different planets. Whereas in the Kali Yuga they are in the same person. In Dwapara Yuga they are in different cities. In Treta Yuga they are different planets, different countries, then different planets in Satya Yuga. Like that, they are distributed. Demoniac and divine are distributed. But in Kali Yuga, divine and demoniac are in the same person. Sometimes the same devotee behaves one way, sometimes behaves that way. Our behavior is not consistent. Sometimes it's totally opposite of what we expect. And that's what makes it hard, because then the younger devotees think, oh, this person is supposed to be senior devotee. Why is he behaving like this? Oh, then he's fallen. I don't have to follow his instructions anymore. I can reject him. So they have that misconception, that utopian idea that everything should be perfect. It's not. We all have faults. We all have limitations. And we should not lose our hope or lose our faith because you see some fault in the devotees. Because we are all work in progress devotees. Rather, we should see what is good in that devotee and try to learn from that devotee and take advantage of that. Otherwise, see faults and reject all devotees, think, oh, that's useless, that one's fallen, I'm better off by myself. Then we are in false ego. That's how the modes are going to act on us. The modes will try to make us think that we're superior. And everyone has faults except me. Then we won't see our own faults. That's why this chapter is very illuminating, because it shows, oh my God, I've got so many faults here. Okay. Read one more verse, I think, was not read. Venkat Madhaprabhu, 12th verse.
लोभ प्रवृत्तिर आरंभ कर्मणाम आश्मस्पृहा राजसी एतानि जायन्ते विवृद्धे भरता ऋषभा. O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop.
Okay. Devaki Mataji, read the purport. Take the microphone, please.
One in the mode of passion is never satisfied with the position he has already acquired. He hankers to increase his position. If he wants to construct a residential house, he tries his best to have a palatial house, as if he would be able to reside in that house eternally. And he develops a great hankering for sense gratification. There is no end to sense gratification. He always wants to remain with his family and in his house and to continue the process of sense gratification. There is no cessation of this. All these symptoms should be understood as the characteristic of the mode of passion.
Yes, so true, isn't it? So what are the main points here?
About the house, and we think that we can live there eternally, which all of us think like that.
Yeah, that's right. We all hope for that, isn't it? Prabhupada is exposing that. So this symptoms of mode of passion is, one is great attachment, Fruitive activity. What does fruitive activity mean? You want to get some result out of it. They call it what they call matlabi, you know. I was doing something to get something in return. But we are the enjoyers, yeah. Intense endeavor. Now, because I'm going to be the enjoyer, I will put a lot of effort in to get my enjoyment at any cost. And uncontrollable desire. The desires don't finish. When you build one house, you want to build two houses. When you build two, you want to build three. Intense endeavor and uncontrollable desire and hankering. Want more and more and more. There's no end to it. So that's how the mode of passion binds us. And Prabhupada here illustrates how it comes in the form of house, family, process of sense gratification. That's why people engage in, that's the last time we discussed the example, right? Going to the temple. Is that mode of goodness, passion or ignorance? Yeah, that's right. If we go there to increase our material desires, that is mode of passion. So most temples are the mode of passion because people go there and pray to the deity to get some sense gratification. And next time you go, you want more. Next time you go, you want more. And if that temple doesn't give, you go to another temple. That God is not very good. That's why Devamata Maharaj told example of, again Prahlad Maharaj is that Nrsimha Dev ordered him to enjoy sense gratification, and Maharaj is saying, he is such an understanding avatar. He is very good. Nrsimha Dev is very good. He is saying enjoy sense gratification. That's why not. He understands our needs. Huh?
Nrsimha Dev understands the ground zero position.
Ground zero position. He knows what you want. He says, Prahlad Maharaj, you have to enjoy sense. Prahlad Maharaj is saying, no, I don't want it. No, you got to have it. How understanding he is. What a great avatar. Yes.
Prabhu, just a question. In the purport, it's Prabhupada mentioned is we have to hanker to increase he hankers to increase his position, and like most of the service when we are actually doing we invoke or we go into the mode of passion. So aren't we how does that related to the person who is actually in the mode of goodness trying to do the service in the mode of passion, and the person who is in the mode of passion? Because even though we are in the mode of goodness, we are trying to go to the next position, which is beyond the mode of goodness or Shuddha Sattva. So how does that thing relates to the mode of passion, and what is the subtle difference there?
See, one doesn't have to go gradually through modes of ignorance, passion, goodness to go to pure goodness. One can go to pure goodness from any level. But that requires expert guidance of a spiritual master or a Vaishnava. A Shiksha Guru, a Diksha Guru, someone has to give you the guidance. You do under the guidance of a senior devotee, of a Vaishnava or Guru directly, whatever it may be, directly or indirectly. Then one is not in the mode, one is not affected by the mode. One is not affected by the mode. Because you are doing it on the order. That's like Arjuna is fighting on behalf of Krishna. Fighting is definitely mode of passion, no doubt about it. But because he is fighting on behalf of Krishna, therefore there is no entanglement. The modes do not affect. So here the mode of passion is being, the characteristics are being mentioned. You want to have more and more attachment. So now the same thing can be transferred to the Lord. I want to build a nice temple for Krishna. I want to offer best clothes for Krishna. I want to do the best decoration for festivals. I want to offer the best flower garland. I want to cook the most opulent bhoga offered to the Lord, food. Prasadam will be very nice. So everything can be dovetailed. Instead of us trying to decorate our own bodies, decorate Krishna. That's what Prabhupada says in Melbourne. He said, in the material world, people are trying to decorate their own bodies, but material nature is taking away all their clothes. Whereas devotees are trying to dress Krishna nicely, so they are wearing nice clothes as well. Because materialistic people, they are trying to dress themselves nicely. They want to look nice. But what is Maya doing? She is taking away their clothes. They are wearing less and less clothes, skimpy clothes. Or skimpy clothes is a very miserable condition. So one is not actually benefiting. So these modes, they are definitely entangling. But if those modes are used in the service of spiritual master, then they are not binding. Right?
My point is like how that is not hankering when we are actually, even though we are.
But
doing
it is an order of Guru, no. Hankering is, now we are hankering to build a temple. That's not material hankering.
because what I was trying to understand is like even the 9 steps of bhakti, that's we are actually trying to go higher and higher, which is basically acquiring some position. Like we, even though we are in Gaura Vrindavana, we may be a cow, and then we want to be a like associate with the like Krishna with like a gopi or gopa or something like that. So we are trying to achieve some higher position again, and we are actually hankering in a way that that I want to be giving more pleasure to Krishna in that form or this form.
Right.
But that hankering is different, and when we actually go into say spiritual world, like the spiritual master may or may not be there. That's what I'm trying to understand. How that hankering in their passion is like, there must be a subtle difference between.
Yes,
that
there is a
hankering
difference, because one is doing for the pleasure of Krishna, as you rightly said. One is being done for pleasure of Krishna, and other one is being done for our own pleasure, for our own sense pleasure, for our own enjoyment, and others for Krishna's enjoyment. So both are hankering has to be there. Hankering should be there. In fact, in Nectar of Devotion, if you read that to come from the Vaidhi Bhakti to Raganuga Bhakti, that yadrichya, that the strong desire has to be there. If that yadrichya is not there, that hankering, intense hankering is not there, to follow in the footsteps of the one cannot come to Raganuga platform. So as we make advancement in spiritual life, we get attracted to a particular devotee in a particular mood. You will find Hanuman more fascinating, or Hanuman type activity more, that we are more propelled towards the Dasya Rasa. If one finds the friendship of Arjuna more attractive, friendship with Krishna, that one is attracted to the devotee who is in that mood, in that mode and that mood. And we get more attracted. We want to follow in the footsteps of that particular devotee. So depending on what our mode is, we get attracted to that mode. But again, Prabhupada warns us not to prematurely get into that. Our default bhav is dasya bhav, of servitude, of a servant. Krishna is the master and we are a servant. He is the Lord and we are his servants. The mood of a servant, servitude. One should not go more intimate than that without authorization of Guru. And that authorization comes in the form of Sambandha Gyan, when Guru reveals our eternal nature with Krishna. So the hankering part is not the problem. The hankering is for whose enjoyment are we hankering. Here is referring to hankering for one's own enjoyment, personal enjoyment. See, in the Bhagavatam and Mahabharata also the example of Dhritarashtra is given. Right? He was so attached to the palace, even after his sons were killed, he remained in the house of the Pandavas. He didn't want to get out. He was not satisfied with his position. He was still trying to enjoy the comforts of palatial life. Until Vidura told him to get out. So what is this? You're living like a dog in the house of the very Pandavas. You try to kill them and they have mercifully given you shelter and you are sitting there and eating and enjoying here. You should be now giving up all this. So Vidura had to really shake him to get him out of that mode of passion that's been described here. It's exactly, you see what he writes here is actually describing Dhritarashtra's position. So is the position of Ravan. He had 12,000 queens. No shortage of queens. 12,000, and they're all good looking, very beautiful, and they all loved him. And he got the best, most beautiful women from all planets, all species, not just human beings. From all different, even Naga Kanyas were some of his wives. They come from different planets, different species of life. So he had the most beautiful women, but why did he go for Sita? Because one is not satisfied. He thought, how can someone like Ram enjoy Sita, who is more beautiful than my wives? So there's no limit to hankering. So Ravan is an example or epitome. Purpose is one place, epitome of material desires and hankering. There's no end to it. He had so much. Lanka was a golden city. That's why one time he said, even if you can't get Ram Raja, at least you can Ravan Raja, still be better than what we are facing in today's nation. Even Ravan Raja is better than today's Kali Yuga condition. Even Ravan Raja is better. Ram Raja is very far away. So the hankering has to be there. Hankering is very healthy. So what the devotees do, they dovetail that hankering to make it transcendental. Just like someone likes to read a lot of books, you tell them, okay, reading so many books, read Bhagavad Gita also. It's nice for you. Someone likes to do philanthropic work, help us build a temple or give a donation. So whatever the person is doing, we try to take that passion or the attraction here, the attachment, and just transfer it to Krishna. That is much easier. That's what Prabhupada used a special word, dovetailing. I never heard that word anywhere before. Only Prabhupada writes that word, dovetailing it, and dovetailing everything in Krishna's service. Because by doing that, one becomes free from the modes. So this example here is talking about the mode of passion, which has got great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering. So in the 18th chapter, Krishna talks about that later, right? Brahmabhuta prasannatma na sochati na kankshati. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labhate param. One is free from hankering and lamentation. Because as long as one is bound by hankering and lamentation, one will be dissatisfied. And when is dissatisfied, what happens? We become engaged in more and more fruitive activity. Okay? So just to wrap this up, we'll read 13 very quickly. It's got a very short purport. We'll wrap it up so the three modes are covered. We'll quickly read text 13. Was not read till now. Mathura Gokul Mathi, you are not read, no?
अप्रकाशो प्रवृत्तिश्च
Aprakasho pravritticha
प्रमादो मोह एव च
pramada moha evacha
तमस्य तनि जायन्ते
tasya dayante
विव्रते कुरु नन्दन.
vivruddhe kuru nandana.
When there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, O son of Kuru, darkness, inertia, madness and illusion are manifested.
Yeah.
Ready to
Shanti Mataji, so not read purport.
When there is no illumination, knowledge is absent. One in the mode of ignorance does not work by a regulative principle. He wants to act whimsically for no purpose. Even though he has the capacity to work, he makes no endeavor. This is called illusion. Although the consciousness is going on, life is inactive. These are the symptoms of one in the mode of ignorance.
Okay, so what are the symptoms of mode of ignorance here?
Life is inactive.
Yeah, inactive, yeah.
Although the conscious is going on.
Yep. Madness, yep. Acting whimsically. There's illusion. Knowledge is absent and there's no illumination.
And they don't work on a regulative principle.
They work on the great principle, yes. Okay. So these are symptoms of mode of illusion or madness. Because in actually Prabhupada in one lecture he mentions there are four kinds of people. This three is there or there's four. He says there is the active and lazy, foolish and intelligent. So matrix of four. So you have four combinations. So you got the lazy foolish, active foolish, lazy intelligence, foolish intelligent. Sorry, active intelligence. I'm sorry. Active, I'm sorry. Yeah, right. Active, yeah. The four. They visualize the four matrix, right? Lazy and active, foolish and intelligent. So which of these four represent which modes? Let's take the first one. Lazy, foolish. That is clearly ignorance, right? What about active foolish? Could be passion, could be ignorance also. Mix, yeah, it's a tricky one. But it could be either. It depends. It could be either. Yeah, border, it's not, I won't call it border because it falls into either this or this category. So it could be, that's not halfway between. Border means you are half goodness. It could be either of the two. Could be either goodness, either could be passion or could be ignorance. What about a lazy intelligent? Prabhupada, surprisingly, I thought so too, but Prabhupada says, he gives example of High Court judge. He says he's very powerful person, very intelligent, and just by saying a few words, he gets a lot of work done. So he said that is mode of goodness. Lazy intelligent is mode of goodness. He doesn't seem to be doing much, but he gets a lot of things done. Yeah, I was surprised too when I heard that. He said, he gives example of High Court judge. He says, he just gives a few orders, he says a few sentences, all things get done. He's so powerful. He's so much respected and He has got that power. That is the power of goodness. Lazy intelligent. That's why they say work smarter, not work harder. So that is mode of goodness. But what about active intelligent? That is passion. Because one is active, one is intelligent. But one works very hard. He doesn't work very smart. He works very hard to get things done. So that's active intelligent. And so of the four, which is the most dangerous? He speaks about that also. Lazy intelligence is not much problem. Active foolish is, yeah. Active and foolish is the most dangerous because they'll do destructive work. They'll do wrong things and they're very active. At least person is drunk, sitting in the gutter, not troubling you. What's the problem? He's lazy and foolish, but he's troubling himself, of course, but he's not harming anyone. But active foolish is the most dangerous, he says, because they can be destructive. They'll actually do something, They won't sit quietly. That's the terrorists and all these kind of people that come in that category. They're active foolish. So anyway, here's the four categories and how the modes interact with each other. And the most tricky one was the active intelligent. I thought that was the top, but it's not actually. Lazy intelligent is the, but laziness is not as laziness here. With a small activity, he gets a lot done. That's the meaning of laziness. Lazy doesn't mean he is lazy. Smartness, exactly. That's a smart person. He can get a lot done with a small effort. He gets a lot of things done. That's very intelligent. So lazy intelligent is, Prabhupada says, the most. So I just thought of mentioning that here because laziness is being mentioned here and no work. He makes no endeavor. And a person is an illusion. Radhanath Maharaj gives also a nice example of in relation to this. He says a person in the mode of ignorance, if he sees some difficult task, he will not take it up. He'll say, oh, that's too hard, I'm not going to do it. That's not for me. A person in the mode of passion takes it up and tries for a little while and then finds difficulties, gives it up. Says, nah, too much, I can't do it. Whereas a person in the mode of goodness will actually try to take up the activity and persevere through the difficulties. So he also says that also is the three levels of devotees, Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttamadhikari. They also are correspondingly in the same levels. Because the Uttamadhikari will not give up because there are so many difficulties or challenges. Recently someone sent me a nice quote from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. No? Did I send it to the whole group? I don't know if I sent it. I got it on, now I've got my WhatsApp active. I'm getting stuff there. Things are coming in that. It's a very nice one. My phone is not here. I sent it to somebody. I thought I sent it to the whole Bhakti Shastri group. Maybe I didn't. Very nice one. I'll find it and I'll send it. I sent it to someone, I don't know, to forward it. Can't remember anyway. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur talks about that also. He says how one gets, even one is insulted, humiliated, a lot of obstacles placed in the path. One should not give up devotion service. A very nice quote about that. I'll try to find that from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Very nice. Inertia means inert, right? Inert, lazy, laziness, We used to read inertia in physics, Okay, so next is about, so next three sections and next three verses about the mode of three modes, how one leaves the body. That also will come to Brahmaranda, the question will come up again. Next few verses are going to talk about related to Brahmaranda also. We'll do that next time. Because now it is almost 1 o'clock.
You said that a person in the mode of passion endeavors for some time but then gives up, but a person in the, well, Radhanath Maharaj said that, and a person in the mode of goodness will continue and endeavor through the difficulties. But say people like terrorists or anyone who is actively foolish, don't they engage in their activities and they're extremely determined about it, but there's nothing in the mode of goodness about that? Or is it just that they have a mode of goodness quality in what they do.
Their determination part is mode of goodness, but because they are doing it for the wrong cause, because it says here, they don't know what is right, what is wrong, what should be done, what should not be done. In one of the Vaishnava songs it says, right, asatyara satya kori mani. That which is asat is temporary, is taken as eternal. And that which is illusion is taken as reality, and reality is taken as illusion. Asatyara satya kori mani. So this is when bewildered by three modes, one gets the opposite understanding. So in the mode of goodness, one knows what is right and act according to that with determination. In the mode of passion, one is confused. What is right, what is wrong. In the mode of ignorance, one will do the opposite. Exact opposite. What is actually bad for him, he'll do, and what is good, he'll avoid.
Just on the point of endeavor, because it said in the previous verse, someone in the mode of passion is characterized by intense endeavor.
Yeah.
So someone in the mode of passion can do that as well.
Correct. So that means that, see, there's no mode acts purely by itself. The determination part could be mode of goodness, but it's being used in the wrong place. The intense endeavor, like you mentioning of the terrorist, the very determined, that's the mode of passion, but again in the wrong direction.
So it could
And
be
a destructive mentality is a mode of ignorance. So you can see how all three are playing up. The determination for the right cause is mode of goodness. Determination for the wrong cause is a mode of ignorance. That's why ignorance is opposed to goodness and passion. It is opposed. It's not a flavor of goodness or let less goodness becomes passion. No. Goodness and passion have some overlap, but ignorance is the opposite. They are foolish because they don't have proper knowledge, but they're active as well. They're active as well. So they're using the passion in a destructive cause. So therefore, that becomes mode of ignorance, because ultimate goal is, mix of both, correct? But where the passion has been used in the mode of ignorance for destruction purpose. Maya Paritagyan, very good. That's a good example of that. When knowledge told me illusion, because that is the nature of mode of ignorance. One takes what is right as wrong, wrong as right. Exactly opposite. Mode of passion, one is confused. Doesn't know right and wrong. Sometimes he gets it right, sometimes he gets it wrong. Mode of goodness has a discrimination, proper discrimination with knowledge. Asurim Bhav. Yeah, that the four kinds who don't surrender to Krishna, that is a good example of that.
So although intense endeavor is mentioned as a characteristic of the mode of passion, in general terms, intense endeavor and determination themselves aren't always mode of goodness or mode of passion.
Correct.
It depends
Correct.
on what they're used for.
Exactly. It can't take it out alone by itself. Haven't taken by itself. You have to look at the purpose of that, where it's being used. Yeah, that's good. That's a good conclusion. Okay. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.